Welcome to SwarmCast, the marketing hive for pest control pros from coast to coast. If you're tired of your competition bugging you and want to grow your business like a well-built colony, you're in the right place. Each episode, we'll break down the latest marketing trends, expert insights, and proven strategies to help you exterminate the competition and keep your phones buzzing. So strap in, pest bosses. It's time to swarm the market and take your business to the next level. This is SwarmCast.
Welcome to the SwarmCast. I have Chelle Hartzer. She has every acronym possible behind her name. BCE, PCQI. She's also a green belt in Six Sigma. Did all kinds of fun stuff with the university, Rollins, you name it. She's got a long career, but now she owns her own business. And my favorite title is Urban Pest Control Consultant. Better yet, the Pest Control Wizard. Thanks for being on our show today. Today, we're going to talk about everything that you do and everything you have become in the industry, the Urban Pest Control Consultant. Can you give me a little background how you actually went from working for companies like Rollins to coming on this journey to where you're at right now? Give us a little heads up on what happened.
Oh my gosh, I don't think we have enough wine for this question. I started my career with IFC Industrial Fumigant Company, which is one of the Rollins companies. And I was there working in the food industry, doing fumigations, whole lot of fun, but very niche. You know, we just service the food processing. So anything from initial harvest up through like distribution center. And that was our niche. From there was a position that became open in the corporate office at Rollins here in Atlanta, Georgia, and decided to take that. It was offered it to me, and it was great time working with all of the brands, and especially Orkin. Orkin's the big red monster out of all the brands. So it was a great learning that whole side of it, the residential side. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I was fired. So lots of Ben and Jerry's, few tears, and what are we going to do next with my life? And had a very good friend of mine who said, you know what, you should do your own thing. And I said, of course I can't do my own thing. That's not going to work. And it has worked. It's worked for the last 5 years. There is this niche in our industry of you are a large company with a full-time entomologist, a full-time trainer, or you're a small company with Google. And there's nothing in between. So there's this niche serving those smaller companies that still need all of those resources, just not at a full-time basis yet.
Yeah, so you might say, hey, you're a fractional person on staff. I'm assuming that's be your sell point. And especially in the food safety arena. So tell us about this. Like, I didn't know what PCQI was until you educated me. So talk about the food safety aspect.
I mean, if you're doing any work with food processing, even, restaurants and things like that, we have to remain very safe because that food is going into people. So we want to make sure it's the safest possible. And we know that a lot of our insect pests, rodent pests can transmit a bunch of foodborne diseases, which is not something we want. So the food industry is very careful about that safety aspect and making sure that whether it's an allergen, whether it's a pest, whatever it is, we keep that out of the food supply. And pest management is obviously a huge part of that, keeping those insects away, keeping the rodents away, and the sanitation aspect, all of that rolls into food safety. You have the audit systems out there that pest control is part of those auditing systems and making sure that you live up to all those standards.
Awesome. That's a really good explanation. Now, I was just at lunch with the world's largest international pest control company, and they were talking about this very subject. In fact, they were talking about a deal with, I'll just say it's one of the largest fast food companies on the planet, and it was right along these lines. So let's talk a little bit about the rodent stuff with traps and bait. Can you still bait traps anymore?
Sure, absolutely. So rodenticides are going through that re-registration process. It's going very, very slowly. So as of right now, there haven't been any changes to rodenticide use. We obviously still want to do it safely. We want to inside that bait station. We want to follow the label. But as of right now, nothing has changed with our bait use.
Okay. So I know that in the industry, there are things that are changing. I don't know all those details, but I do know that in the food industry specifically, yeah, yeah, they need consultants like yourself that can bring that expertise. When a lot of people are using AI. I know I do every day. You probably do too.
Yep.
And there's something called an AI hallucination. Have you heard that before?
I've experienced that before. So a lot of the work I do is, scientific stuff. I pull from scientific journals. I pull from the data that's out there to help us, do pest control in the best possible way. And when you ask AI to do some of this, I've encountered some of those hallucinations and double checked them and have said, wait a minute, that's not right.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I kind of laughed, even saying a hallucination. I was looking at OpenAI's new Deep Search because they got to compete with Deep Seek. We're talking all the stuff that's happened in the last week.
Mhm.
And if you look, I'm not making this up. If you look at Deep Search's selling points, it says it's more accurate. So it's like, okay, more accurate. You mean all the junk I've been getting from now is not accurate? You,
Makes you wonder.
yeah, you don't want to be inaccurate when you're talking about what you deal with, food
Mhm.
safety, in the entomology and everything that you're doing. Uh, Obviously, yeah, we'll learn more as it goes along. But I do like the fact checking, and I'll throw this one out to you, is Perplexity is now running Deep Seek on their own US servers, because that was the issue, right? This is in China
Mhm.
running it.
Yeah.
We don't want to give them access to our data. So now they're running it on US based servers.
Hmm.
And the first company to adopt R1 is what it's called, is Perplexity. So take a look at Perplexity.
Yeah.
I've been using Perplexity for a while on my phone. It fact checks things,
Mm,
which is very
nice.
helpful out in the field when you're out in the field a lot.
Yep.
So cool, nice. Didn't know you were gonna get a little tip. Get a little tip on this stuff. Well, one of the
That's
other things
awesome.
is
I
I'm
love it.
writing. Yeah, I'm going to be writing a book on AI for the pest control industry and
Nice.
using certain technologies in conjunction with, for these PCOs that are out there trying to enhance their businesses to be more profitable and so forth. Curious, what tools do you use right now with what you do? What kind of tools do you use?
Google Scholar is my best friend. Like I said, I go through
Oh,
scientific journals all the time to keep updated on the science because we may not have, people testing rodenticide resistance here in the US, but there's lots of that testing in Europe and Australia and papers that we can learn from and apply to what we do here. So I'm constantly looking at research. So Google Scholar is one of my best friends. I'm kind of a grammar nerd, and I want to make sure that everything I put out is right. So I love the Hemingway app and Grammarly to make sure that my writing is not filled with mistakes. I am terrible at spelling. Thank goodness we have spell check out there. But yeah, and I use AI for questions sometimes. It's fun to kind of ask and see if you get the terms right. It's just like I think it's just like searching. You got to put the right terms in there for it to give you what you want. And sometimes it comes up with some pretty creative stuff that works.
awesome. I love it. So somebody's out there and they're like, hey, I really don't have a team that does what Shell does. So how would they reach out to you? They just go to your website, schedule a session. What's the engagement look like?
Absolutely. I have a link on my website for to schedule a free 30-minute meeting. If you've gotten an email from me, that link is in my email. My website is chellehartzer.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm not hard to find. So email me, shoot me a call, contact me on LinkedIn, schedule a meeting, any of those things. Any way you want to get in touch with me, that's fine with me.
That's awesome. Now, are you putting out, tell me about some of the content that you're putting out there right now. How are you doing outreach in your own marketing efforts to find opportunities? I'm
Yeah, so I
curious.
write a weekly blog, which is purely educational. Maybe something like food safety, could be something like German cockroaches, whatever I'm in the mood for that week. And that goes out. I'm very active on LinkedIn and Facebook, so you can always see again some of the new science that's out there, any new articles, things that I find, and that science aspect of it and remaining up to date because yeah, pest control hasn't changed too much, but there's still little changes that we can incorporate and adapt with. So yeah, when you're looking at me, I am that science researcher for you. I love getting picture IDs. I am the queen of the fuzzy cell phone picture. You send me that fuzzy cell phone picture from like 6 feet away and you can see like one wing. That's my superpower. But we do
That's
all kinds
awesome.
of troubleshooting, customer communications, audit help, setting up accounts, just about everything that a scientific technical advisor is going to help you with, and of course, training. Right? That's a huge part of what I do. I do a lot of webinars, write articles for PCT and QA magazines. So yeah, that's kind of my outreach. That's kind of my marketing is just put what I have out there and let companies know that this is a really cool resource that you've never had access to before. And now you do.
That's beautiful. PCT author. That's great. So
Yeah.
the journal comes to you to get good articles. That's beautiful.
I
Nice.
they haven't fired me yet,
Um,
so I must be pretty
they haven't
decent
fired
at it.
yet. Well, they're after me, right? They're after me all the time. Mainly to market through their journals, right? And what we do. But we do have a mastermind community that I'm building right now called Swarm Mastermind. And we
Hmm.
are working with the goal is to develop 30 PCOs in the country, the United States. I haven't taken anybody from Canada yet that are up and coming PCOs that are growing and building their businesses. We are looking to grow about to 200 million in annual revenue with all these PCOs, right? So
Awesome.
they're gonna need you for sure because they're not the $100 million player that already has a team.
Hmm.
Most of these players are sub 10 million. They're not going to have an entomologist on staff.
Nope,
They might have to go to the
not ready yet.
university. Like I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. I have a pest control company here in Tucson, and we've just had the roof rat invasion in Tucson,
Ooh.
Arizona. You know how they did it? They got on the trains. The trains show up in Tucson,
Hmm.
they jump off the trains, and now they're in Tucson. So they migrated down here, and there's an entomologist at the University of Arizona that in academia that Greg Weatherly, who's runs Pest Friends, our pest control company, interacts with and talks to her locally. But
Yeah.
having said that, we have people all over the country that are going to need you. So that'll be nice to have you come in. And if you're open to it, who knows? Maybe do you do speaking engagements? Is that something you like to do?
Absolutely. I was just at Cornell last week. Did a presentation actually on training of all things. And the other one we had was on kind of audited accounts, how to look at them, what information you need to know. I'm headed to Texas at the end of the month to do some rodent presentations for a company there. I do a lot of uh, the state meetings, the smaller meetings that are around there because they're just a lot of fun to have all those smaller companies. And but yes, lots of training, lots of speaking, and it's fun for me. I like that aspect of it.
How do you like being an entrepreneur versus being in corporate America? It was very scary at first. How are you liking the entrepreneur aspect?
I think it's great. It's totally different. I had a great time working for the big company. You learn a lot. There's so much going on, but the smaller companies are great too in their own ways. So now instead of working for that big corporate company and supporting them, I'm just working to support the smaller companies. And, I don't have a boss who's telling me to hurry up and get to work every morning. So, you get to set your own hours, you get to do your own thing. But the other part of that is, marketing, hustling to get yourself out there, to get those pest control companies to realize what a resource they'd have. So I like it, not necessarily better or worse, just different.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, as you're building your personal brand, being somebody that is from marketing, I'm going to give you a tip right now. You gave me one, which I've heard before, but now I've heard a use case scenario is Google Scholar, which is great. It's a tool you use.
Mm-hmm.
There is something called Google Knowledge Panel. Are you familiar
Oh,
with the Google Knowledge Panel?
no, writing that one down.
All right. I want you to write down Google Knowledge Panel. And I
Okay.
would share my screen right here, but we're having too much fun talking. The Google Knowledge Panel is something that you can claim and go through a process. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a resource that could help you with that. because as a busy business owner, you probably don't want to spend 40 hours learning how to do this.
No.
But what's nice is when I typed your name into Google, I saw a couple pictures of you. I'm like, oh, that's who I'm talking to today. And but it goes into depth and shares more of all the social media you're putting out there and collects it in a one panel that you have now claimed. So if somebody's looking at like, who is this person? They see the LinkedIn profile, but it's only one line, one search engine results link. It fills up a whole panel, and it can be maybe it
Nice.
has an article, especially if you have published works in PCT. Tell me, have you written a book yet?
No, but I'm currently editing a book for that's one of the pest control resources that a lot of people use. I'm not going to tell you which one, but it'll come out, and that's been a interesting journey to edit that one.
Okay, I'm going to encourage you to write your own book,
Yeah.
and I want that one when that one comes out. I want you to write your own
All right.
book. You have tons of knowledge. People need to hear it and want it. And it's also going to give you even more credibility. You already have credibility, but it's just another marker. I wrote my first book last year, and
Oh.
it really helps out in the Google knowledge panel. So when somebody's looking up,
Mm.
they're like, oh, she's got her own book out there.
Hmm.
What would you write about? I don't know. Can't wait to hear when maybe AI can help you come up with a couple book titles, but
Oh
I'm sure
yeah.
it can even be something unrelated. One of my mentors wrote a book, and he wrote a bread time story. He makes bread, so he created
That's
a book
so
called A Bread Time
cool.
Story. It was cute, and
Oh.
he's the type of guy that does Super Bowl commercials,
Mm.
and he did something kind of completely unrelated. He likes making bagels and bread, so that's what he did. So you're gonna,
Cool.
I'd love to hear. I'd like to buy your book, your first book you write, and you got to come up with what you're gonna do. Can't wait.
All right. Putting it on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
list.
It's on the list. You're going to finish doing this periodical you're doing. You write enough. Why not do your own book? And that's going to help out on your knowledge panel because a book on Amazon and Google is a surefire way to get that knowledge panel to take.
Hmm.
Yeah. And,
Cool.
and I'm not saying it won't take, it's just additional resources that'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then audiobook too. You got a good voice. Just do an audiobook too. Or have AI do the a different voice for you if you want.
Mm. Okay.
Awesome. All right. Well, we talked about I love your title here on LinkedIn, by the way. Pest Control Wizard. Talk
Yeah.
about that. What does that mean to you? Pest Control Wizard. What is that?
You know, pest control can be 90% easy. We're dealing with the same things, the same situations. We know how to handle it. It's the 10% that just blows our mind for one reason or another. And it's that tricky situation, or, we can't do exclusion, or sanitation is always going to be met. That 10% that just makes you have to think outside the box a little bit and put on the magic hat and wave the magic wand around a little bit to put those pieces together in some kind of format so you're still solving the problem, but it's not always going to be completely solved. So that wizarding aspect of just thinking creatively and taking what we know about pest control and the science of pest control and applying it to some of these really challenging problems that we have sometimes.
And that's what came to mind as you were talking about is what is the most challenging problem you've had the opportunity to help fix? Is there one out there that you can think of? And it can be
Oh,
funny. It can be funny too. It doesn't have to
there's
be
two.
all
It's
serious.
it's I'll give you two. My first really challenging situation that I hate is when you're down to that one last rat. You've cleared them all out, but that one last adult rat has gotten really smart and he is evading all of your traps and all of your efforts. And you could like plaster the thing with traps and somehow he'd still evade you. And it's that one last damn rat that gets so hard. Other than that, some of the challenging stuff I've worked with a number of museums. And with museums, it's almost like the food industry. You have these really sensitive areas that, you're not gonna spray a Vermeer painting with pesticide because, the frame is infested with wood boring beetles or something. So that's one of those areas that you just have to get very creative with and work around all of what they're doing, still get their partnership with it, and know that it may not be the whole situation, but we don't have all the pieces. So this is what's going to fit, and this is what's going to stem the flaunch of blood until we can do something else. But museums are a lot of fun for that aspect of just being so different and so cool. I'm such a geek when it comes to museums and zoos and stuff like that. I love it.
That's awesome. I was thinking of Master Splinter, the rat you can't catch.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Ninja Turtle, the Ninja Turtles rat's too smart. And then when you were talking about the museum, I had a piece in my office that was mesquite, and it had a wood boring beetle in it. And so I would do my thinking on that bench, and I'm like, what is that noise? And sure enough, it was a beetle eating my furniture. They love mesquite. They love mesquite. Anyway, those are
that's why
yeah.
they call it the Death Watch. I was going to say they called it Death Watch beetle because when houses were quiet and they were observing a death, they were so quiet that they could hear the wood-boring beetles in the woods and the houses. So that's why they were called the Death Watch beetle, because people heard them while they were on death watch.
Did not know that. See, things you learn. Well, this is fun. I will definitely would like to make some introductions for you, and I'll do that on LinkedIn after we're done with our podcast. But I think that your career here, starting with you were a research assistant. How did that? I mean, you did that for a year. USDA. What was that? How did you get into this industry?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think like everybody in the pest management world, I got here completely accidentally. I love asking that question, how did you get into this field? And I find 95% of the people I talk to, it was accidental. We somehow got pulled in one way or another, and presto, more than 10 years later, here we are. So yeah, I worked for the USDA and Kansas State University as a full-time lab person, lab technician, and it was working on stored product insects. So it was working on the little flower beetles, on the Indian meal moth. We were doing packaging tests. So you get a package of granola bars and can cigarette beetles chew through the plastic of that granola bar. So we did a lot of product testing. We were in and out of food facilities, doing monitoring data and seeing what treatments we're doing and running some experiments from there. So it was kind of a natural jump to go from that research aspect of doing all the stored product stuff to industrial fumigant company, where we, used all that information to then go ahead and treat and make those facilities safer.
It's awesome. I was looking at the year you started was in 08. That's when I started my digital marketing agency. And I was thinking about my journey as you were talking about how do you end up in pest control? I was asked to market a pest control company and to also be a partner in one. You've probably seen the Truly Nolan brand before. I'm sure you've seen Truly Nolan, the little yellow cars. So the president of that company asked me to partner with him and do my part marketing a new pest control company. That's how I got dragged into pest. I want to say dragged. I wasn't dragged. It was something that was fun and exciting, and here we are, a couple years later.
Yep.
And here we are on this podcast, talking about Urban Pest Control Consulting, which is fantastic. Now I have a resource. If there is a food safety slash, I need a green belt, somebody that's writing articles in PCT, I know exactly who to call to bring in. And don't be don't be surprised if I reach out to have you do some speaking. We might need some speaking if that's something you want to do. I'm not sure if you like to travel, but we're in Arizona. I'm not sure exactly where you're in Georgia. You're in Georgia.
Yep,
you'd come
just
down
outside
from
of Atlanta, Georgia. I love to travel.
Yeah.
And I have the Atlanta airport here. I mean, everybody complains about the Atlanta airport, but I can go anywhere from Atlanta. It's great.
What was neat is I got trained in Atlanta by UPS. That's where their corporate headquarters are. I worked for UPS for 10 years, and I did my Rollins tour too, right? As far as corporate America, I did that. So anyhow, it'd be nice to have you come out to Arizona when we have some events. We'll do some intensives. Just have to pick subjects we want to talk about. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to just meditate on everything we talked about today. You're such a fun person, and thanks for being willing to come on the show when I couldn't make it the first time. So thank you so much. And that's
no problem. Thanks for the invite.
Man, I learned a lot today. So this was great. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap on this episode of SwarmCast. Thanks for tuning in and arming yourself with the marketing firepower to keep your pest control business thriving. Before you scurry off, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave us a review. It helps us spread like a well-placed bait station. Got a topic you want us to tackle? Drop us a line and let's keep the conversation buzzing. Until next time, stay sharp, stay strategic, and keep swarming the market.